ride with me to the other clans and we will defeat the sky people.
You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.
Hello out there in podcast and YouTube land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, where we talk about horror movies and science fiction films and those key elements that separate them from the average genre fare. Notice I changed my wording there. Basically, we like to talk about the influences and things that might have been influenced by these movies, because there are seeds of these things in everything. If you were joining us for the first time, you don't know this, and that's why I explained it. So there. If you are returning, then you are into our groove as far as the minutia of these films and what we feel does elevate them somewhat in most cases from other films. I am here today with my co-host and good friend David Horton, who I actually saw since the last time we recorded an episode. And True. I haven't seen you in what, 20 years?
20 years.
In person.
In person, yeah. We see each other on the Zoomage, but not in person, and that was great. That was good. That was great. That was a fun time.
How are you doing, David?
I'm doing okay. Busy, erratic, crazy, like always. I try to stay distracted all the time, but I am trying to plow through Peripheral. I want to catch up with it, and I'd started it months and months ago, and got distracted by other stuff. And so hopefully I'm going to finish it by the end of this week. But it is interesting. I don't think Peripheral is a series. Again, it's from Lisa Joy and Christopher Nolan, or Jonathan Nolan, who did Westworld, which I love. First season of Westworld. And they have now done this series, which is, again, a science fiction, mess with your mind things, very, I think I said one time when I was talking about Westworld, I said it reminds me a lot of a Philip K. Dick kind of philosophy of things aren't what you think they are. The government isn't who you think they are, or your surroundings aren't the same, or you find out some secret hidden agenda from your past that, sort of thing. And they write to that kind of mentality. The first season of Westworld was all about, the quote is, "Have you ever questioned the nature of your reality?" And that's what that whole season was about. And this is similar to that. It actually is a little bit more pop because you have a gamer girl who is given a new piece of experimental hardware that allows her to go into a virtual reality. So it's very meta, if you want to think about that, like Facebook meta kind of stuff. But she can start manipulating things in that world. And it gets very, like a lot of their projects, it gets very obtuse and very crazy and very strange. And I'm hoping that they'll have a good resolution by the end of the season. But yeah, it's called Peripheral. I think it's on Amazon Prime, I think. And it's really good so far.
Yeah, it's got Chloe Grace Moretz in it, and some guy that I recognize too. Do you remember?
I'm trying to remember which one you're talking about.
I don't know. I just remember seeing a clip like on Amazon, just flipping through the other day.
Was it the African-American guy?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Anyway, so it's got more of that mystery element that's from Westworld, where you're trying to figure out what's going on.
I think all of their projects do. All of their projects involve a lot of misperceptions, things you don't understand, that kind of stuff. And this is no exception, especially this, because you end up questioning because she has what they call, I forgot the term. Anyway, she has these haptic memories. So in the real world, the virtual reality starts intruding on it. almost like, dreams used to be. Now they're using virtual reality for that same kind of gimmick. So it's that kind of thing where you're unsure of what you're actually seeing. And it's very dark too. It's not as dark as like Black Mirror, but it reminds me of Black Mirror, when technology goes wrong, kind of, subtext.
Okay, I just looked up who I was thinking of in that show, and as soon as I recognized him, I was like, "Oh yeah, I like him." It's Jack Rayner, the guy from Midsommar.
Oh, he plays Burton. He's her brother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's the one that I was like, "Oh, I didn't know he was in this. This is maybe a reason to watch this."
yeah. Yes, you would like that. Yeah. And wait, was he her brother in Midsommar?
Was he her brother or her boyfriend? I think he was her boyfriend. Wasn't
he was her boyfriend in Midsommar. He's her brother in Peripheral.
But it's Florence Pugh in Midsommar, not
correct.
Chloe. Right. It's correct. A different girl, just another blonde woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I have not seen him in anything else. I think he may even be English. Or is he American?
I think he's American. Well, in the show, he's American. It's definitely an American accent.
Okay. So. Yeah, I may just be projecting. I have no idea. So what have I been doing? I guess it's my turn, huh?
Yes.
Well, I have been down the hallowed horror halls of Shudder Television, as I usually am. And I looked at a little movie called They Look Like People.
Okay.
I had seen this movie. It's been on Shudder a while, but I had not really been drawn to it. However, it's a psychological horror movie that I now wanted to see because Mike Flanagan has been touting it as a masterclass in low budget filmmaking.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
He hosted, I have not got my information on this, but he hosted some kind of indie film fest or like low budget film fest, and this was one of his top choices.
Okay.
So I had read it in some article that I saw on social media, I'm sure. It is written and directed by Perry Blackshear. It's his first feature-length film, so I really don't know anything else, obviously, that he's been involved with. It also includes some people in the cast that I have never seen before. McLeod Andrews, Evan Dumochel, if I'm pronouncing that right, both of which, not so coincidentally, who had small parts in Dr. Sleep.
Excellent.
So Flanagan's lifting people from this movie. And a woman named Margaret Ying Drake, who is also really good. The synopsis is: suspecting that people around him are turning into evil creatures, a troubled man questions whether to protect his only friend from an impending war or from himself.
Okay.
Yeah. It is a great film. It is largely a character study on schizophrenia.
Okay.
And of course, there's a mystery element to it as well. Is he crazy, or is this really happening?
Right.
He believes people around him are being are things that they are other. Excuse me. He believes they are things than other. I can't speak. He believes that they are things other than what they tell them. Tell him they are. God, I can't speak. I will say that one more time. He believes the people around him to be things other than what they tell him they are. This disease, of course, includes hallucinations and distortions of reality, which make for good filmmaking and some challenging filmmaking when you're using a low budget, which is probably why Mike Flanagan paid attention to some of the stuff done. It's masterfully directed, and it scores 92% on Rotten Tomatoes. And, of course, it's on Shudder.
Of course. Yeah. So let me ask you a question. It's almost like a literary question. So
sure.
Again, it's similar to mine with the Philip K. Dick thing, where their reality starts changing and what they perceive as wrong or not or whatever. Is that, in literary terms, is that what you call an unreliable narrator, where they are uncertain as well? So our hero, we don't know if what our hero is thinking or believing or whatever is actually true or not.
It can be used to that effect.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
An unreliable narrator doesn't necessarily have to be first person, though. It can also be third person.
Right. But
Yeah.
it's the narrative that you are being told, you end up finding out you can't really trust because
Right.
it's from a different perception or whatever. That's what that
Exactly.
means, right?
And
Okay.
in this
Okay.
case, that's how a lot of it's done. You're seeing things from his perception, but you're also seeing it from others. And you're like, is this really happening? Because sometimes he plays tricks on you and it looks like it could really be happening.
So is it scary?
Uh
Or is it more
Actually,
psychological kind of interest?
it is definitely more psychological than scary. The scare comes from the fact that is he going to kill somebody because he thinks they're not what they are, which
Okay.
is like his friend, his best friend. All of a sudden, you know, they're together, and he's like, "Do I tell him what's going on?" You know, and the voices are telling him, "No, you cannot," because you know he won't understand. He will not understand. Then eventually they start telling you he will not understand because he is one of them. And then you're like, oh fuck, man, he's going to kill this guy. And you're starting to see it from an average Joe perspective where, oh, this guy's just crazy. You know,
Okay.
so that's where the fear lies. That's where the terror, the scares come in. So yeah, I highly recommend it. I think you would like it.
Okay.
It's low budget, slow burn. My favorite.
Well, and today we have low budget, scary, and fast burn, or burns all the way through, or incinerates with a pistol
It's
all the
burned
time.
into my memory.
It is definitely burned somewhere. It's definitely burned. Well, we are covering a little film today called Galaxy of Terror, one of the infinite number of, quote, alien ripoffs. It came out in 1981. It is produced by the man who gave so much talent to other people, but not really in mostly his movies, Roger Corman, who, and it is, the directing credit goes to Bruce D. Clark. However, there's some controversy about that, which I'm sure we'll get into. It was written by Bruce D. Clark and Mark Seigler, who you'll never hear of again and or since. Stars Edward Albert, Erin Moran, Ray Walston, among a host of others. Robert Englund, Zalman King, has it. Sid Haig. I mean, Grace Zabriskie. What a cast! We'll talk about that too. We'll go to cast,
Yes.
I'm sure. But I guess a brief synopsis to start. We begin with the planet Xerces and the Planet Master sitting with a soothsayer and they're playing Pong or something. And they get interrupted that the spaceship Remus has crash landed on a planet called Morganthus. And so the Planet Master decides that he's going to send a rescue operation. He's sending the spacecraft Quest, great title for that, a great name for that ship, to investigate. But when it gets to the planet, it also crash lands, leaving a cast of ragtag crew, including Baelon, who leads the away team. He's a little bit of a loose cannon. There's also a rival of his named Cabren, a psi-sensitive Alluma, medic Dameia, martial artist Quuhod.
Where the hell are you getting all this stuff?
It's their names. And jittery rookie Kaz, who is the lovable alien, everybody's favorite Martian. They basically go to investigate the ship, find a bunch of mutilated bodies, and then instead of leaving, hey, let's just go investigate this alien pyramid too. So they go there, and one by one, they get killed off in alien-esque fashion. Had you seen this movie before?
Oh my God, I love this movie. I have seen this movie. This was either the fourth or fifth time I've seen this movie.
Really?
Yes,
Okay.
I own it on Blu-ray, and I have like the behind-the-scenes stuff from it on a second disc. It was actually a 2-disc.
Okay.
But the first time I saw it was not in a theater. It was around 1982, probably, when it debuted on HBO. And yes, HBO did used to put stuff like this on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially late at night for stoners.
Well, I remember, I don't remember seeing this before, but I know I did. Because I remember, but I also always remember disassociating Erin Moran with the girl that plays Dameia, Zaffrey or whatever her name is.
Is it Moran or More? I've always said Moran.
Moran,
Okay.
yeah. I always associate her with Taaffe O'Connell, and because I used to always say, "Oh yeah, that's where Joni got raped by the slug."
No.
Right?
Joni's head explodes.
Yes, her head explodes. Yes,
that's what I used to always say. It's the movie where the woman gets raped by the maggot and Joni Cunningham's head explodes.
Right, but for some reason I must have been so wasted when I saw this that I don't remember it, because watching it this time I was going, I have never seen this. I don't think I've ever seen this movie.
Oh my God, it's classic.
It's something. I got to tell you, it's something.
I mean, it's classic Roger Corman. I mean, and you said something to the effect of, he spawns talent that goes other places.
Yes.
But honestly, he collects it too. He just doesn't use it to his best ability. I mean, we could go back to that version of The Raven that he directed. I mean, there was Richard Matheson wrote that, and it had, Vincent Price and Boris Karloff and Peter Lorre in it, but it still sucked. It was terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
This movie, has Sid Haig. It has Robert Englund. It had James Cameron behind the scenes. I mean, tons of talent behind this movie for it to be. And honestly, it does really look good in places. But it's all they could do with the budget they had.
Well, when you're talking about, the good, the bad, the indifferent kind of stuff to it, are goods or bads. I do think the cast, it's a crazy assortment of very talented cast members who are given a terrible script to try to do. It is just completely terrible. And you're given some great production design in places, complemented with no plot that actually utilizes the production design that you've created so well, kind of thing. So it was definitely a give and take sort of thing. Another good one, I would think, is some of the practical effects are good. Some of the makeup effects are good, and they don't scrimp on the gore kind of thing. So if you want to see some gore, it's good. But the sound editing is horrible. I mean, somebody kicks somebody in the stomach and you hear and I'm going, what? That makes no sense. I'm going looking for a tunnel, and all you hear is that one wind effect you used to always hear in the 70s, anytime on television, when like Sigmund and the Sea Monsters would go into the tunnel, you hear and it's the same sound over and over and over again. I'm going, oh my God. So it has pluses and minuses. This is definitely not a movie I would recommend from any kind of screenplay class, but I do recommend that people see it. It is, I think, a Corman classic. It is probably one of the better ripoffs of Alien. I mean, we cannot go through this without mentioning first and foremost, this is the key to this movie is Alien. If there had not been Alien, you would not have had this movie.
I mean, it's also probably the reason, or a reason, that James Cameron went to do Aliens, the sequel to Alien.
It's the reason he got to do his first movie, because the producers were on set when he was directing second unit stuff and said, hey, let's give this guy that piranha thing we're doing too. Well,
he actually, very much like any traditional job, worked his way up through Corman's studio.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he started as a lower level position and then moved up to, art department. And then in this, he turned into a second unit director and did all the murder scenes. So he kind of worked his way up the ladder of New World Pictures before they gave him, I guess Piranha 2 may have been a New World picture, and that's probably why he ended up directing it. Yeah.
And I watched a couple of documentaries and everything else, and a few of them were saying that, it may have been more than the murder scenes. There's some Cameron traditional kind of photography shots in this.
Yes.
In other words, not just the effects of the murder, but the leading up to it, the suspense and the running through the corridors and all of that. The
planet
kind of
itself. I mean, from what I understand, a lot of the same crew that he used did Aliens. So that's why a lot of that, you see all that fog and the dark, the darkness of the planet. And
some of his special effects crew, but most of the crew in Aliens was in England.
Oh, in England. Okay.
Yes. But yes, he brought a couple of Cormanites over with him for the special effects. Yeah.
It's the Cormanite maneuver.
Yeah. But his you can see some of the Cameron-esque stuff in this, the running through the corridors and the low camera, so you see the ceiling as you're going along holding your gun, kind of Aliens sort of stuff in this. And yeah, supposedly he started out saying, hey, can I shoot some second unit stuff? Because I'm noticing that the director isn't doing a lot of coverage, and you're going to need coverage once you get into editing. And Corman said, yeah, sure, kid, go ahead, do whatever. And by the second week of it, they were actually giving him cast members saying, shoot, go ahead and shoot this scene 22, go shoot that. So, and so what I got, one key I have to this, or possible key, is a very poltergeisty kind of situation where who really did direct this movie? Was it Bruce or was it James?
It was three people, actually, because Corman directed the rape scene. No one else would touch
I'm sure he did. Yeah.
That's funny. But yeah, poltergeist is a good key. Now I'm putting that down right now.
Just because there's a lot of that I don't know who shot what, when, where sort of thing.
Yeah,
but production design, he deserves production design for this one, because it does have some really cool, especially the Giger inspired sort of alien-esque stuff is good. Some of the corridors are really good. The control room, which you have behind you, is not good. That is a terrible design, and the computer monitors are horrible. The control panels are terrible. It's just not good.
I don't know if I can find this out to make it a key.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the corridors looked good. Basically, I think in Alien they use like egg crates or something. In this, they use McDonald's takeout containers.
Oh yeah.
To make it. And I watched a documentary called Tales from the Lumberyard or something that was a making of this movie. And there is a rumor Robert Englund had heard that one weekend Roger Corman rented the corridor out to a German company for a watch commercial and made the entire budget for the movie, just renting that corridor out.
Probably.
Which is totally the school of Roger Corman. He knows how to make money from nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. He knows how to maximize his usage. And like, the uniforms in this, the key for that, the uniforms in this are all from Battlestar Galactica. As soon as I saw them, I went, oh my God, those are Battlestar Galactica uniforms. What are they doing?
Yeah. He got them cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you for pluses and minuses? I mean, I gave mine. What do you like? What do you not? Oh, well, you love the whole movie, but what do you like and what do you not like? That sort of thing.
Well, I mean, as far as pluses and minuses, I think you nailed it with the script. I mean, the dialogue is terrible in this movie. It's so bad.
I hate this place. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah. But when you are watching it as a kid, I mean, I was probably 18, maybe at the most, maybe even younger. It's got everything. I mean, I'm like I said, a woman gets violated by a giant worm. Joni Cunningham from Happy Days, his head explodes. Sid Haig has this horrific thing where he ends up chopping his own arm off. I mean, there's a lot of really good things in it. And it was Robert Englund before we knew he was Freddy Krueger. I mean, because this movie came out 3 years prior.
Yeah.
I would say of the two people this movie produced, it's Robert Englund and James Cameron. Those are probably the two most famous people that came out of this movie.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, definitely.
So there's that. If you go back into a little bit into production, Bruce D. Clark or B.D. Clark, he had only directed 5 movies, and other than this one, I don't know any of them.
No, they were all early Corman.
I promise.
Yeah, they were all early Corman, motorcycle picks
Right.
and stuff like that. Yeah, he did some exploitation stuff. That's what he did.
And then Mark Siegler, the guy that wrote it, is actually more of an actor. So that explains why it's not that great. Bruce and William did the outline, but William Stout, that is. And William Stout was an art department guy. Yep. So why was he writing the script? Because it's a Roger Corman production.
It's a Roger Corman movie. Hey, you might got an idea? We got to shoot this thing next weekend.
Right. And actually, you could argue that William Stout is another one like Robert Englund or James Cameron that went on to do bigger and better things, because he was an art department guy for First Blood, for Pan's Labyrinth, and for The Mist. So, I mean, he went on to do, and probably still is working for all I know. I haven't checked on that. One other funny thing that I think you might not have known, but maybe you did subconsciously, is guess who was the set dresser and, one of James Cameron's left hand or right hand men?
That would be Bill Paxton.
That would be Bill Paxton.
Yes. Why don't you put her in charge, man?
Let's put him in charge.
Yeah.
It was before he became an actor. I mean, the first thing I ever saw Bill Paxton in was Weird Science. It was not a James Cameron movie. It was Weird Science.
No.
Chet, the older brother. But anyway, he was a set dresser for this film long before he was an actor.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And went on from there. I mean, definitely Cameron took him with him for Aliens. Oh, yeah. I mean, I was like 5 minutes into this movie and went, oh my gosh, I got to look it up, and looked up 1981 and said, oh my, Aliens was 2 years before this. Look at the style of each of these. And I'm like going, no.
Well, I mean, the whole scene where they get out of the ship and go to the pyramid is exactly like the scene in Alien where they get out of the ship and go into the old alien ship.
Yeah.
And I lost my train of thought. Oh, the only thing that I noticed that was definitely different is that they don't have helmets on. They made the atmosphere breathable so they didn't have to spend money on helmets.
Right. And also light them so we could see who's who sort of thing in them. Yes. Right. Totally agree with that. I mean, totally understood that.
Yeah.
And they had that stupid line about there's no friendlies out there, but at least you'll probably be able to breathe. And I was thinking, probably. Can you do another test just to see? Maybe. It's like the Zabriskie character who, at the very beginning, she's like, they have 30 seconds to launch. It's like, what?
That was hilarious because she was like, I want to keep them on their toes. They're all running around. And Robert Englund doesn't even have time to put his seatbelt on. He ends up sitting in what's-her-face's lap, and she just wraps her arms and legs.
Yeah, Dameia's. Yeah. I was like going, okay, you won't accomplish the mission if you get there faster and the crew is splattered all over the walls, kind of
That's
thing.
a pretty good takeoff, though, special effects wise, I thought.
Yeah, it was okay. But yeah, so I was looking into the Alien thing going, okay, but it explains it because Alien was, $11 million or whatever. And this one was like 700,000.
It was, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it was exactly 700,000.
Yeah. So I was going, okay, so that explains a little bit of this while we're using, costumes from another television series that's over, and we're kind of retreading a bunch of the same McDonald's cart. Hey, don't throw that away when you're through eating, man. I want to put it on the wall.
Did you have any other scenes besides the rape and the head explosion?
Are there other scenes? No. I have to say the bookends of this movie feel like they're from a different freaking movie. The whole master and son face playing pong with the soothsayer kind of thing, and then the very end finale climax, I'm going, what? Where did this come from? Who came up with this idea for this entire thing?
It was like they were trying to tie it in, and it was like, oh, that doesn't fit right.
Well, yeah, trying to give because in Alien, the rationale at the very end is we realize when Ash turns and everything else that the company literally sent them there. That's the twist. The company meant to send them there on purpose to get an alien sample. That was the overall goal. And in this one, the overall goal is the master wants to send them there to find somebody to replace himself, which is Cabren, who shoots multi-laser beams out of his stomach and kills him and then turns into the sunhead himself, kind of thing. It was so trippy. I was going, okay, were you guys just stoned when you wrote this part? I don't understand.
Well, I may be remembering this wrong, but doesn't Ray Walston have something to do with it too?
Well, he's the master.
He is the master. He ends up being the master, and it's like, oh, so you went on your own mission to turn somebody into yourself? Yeah, okay.
Which is, and we just left poor Robert Englund sitting at the bottom of the steps. I'm going, is he still there? I don't know what happened, because literally the guy he turns into the sunhead, and we go to credits. We're done.
Credits roll.
All right, get everybody out. Clean the popcorn up. We got to do this again. Yeah, whatever. It was crazy. But yeah, so I would think memorable scenes. Those would be the two memorable scenes.
When you discover that he is the master.
I will say that all of the scenes, with the exception of the one big screamy freakout scene with Robert Englund, are really good and show him as a really good actor that you really don't get to see in a lot of Freddy, because he's kind of one-dimensional in Freddy.
Oh, he's a great actor. And I love that scream. Because it's such a funny moment when that door opens and Grace Zabrisky's face is just burned off, and it's like a skull with eyeballs out of Return of the Living Dead. And you just see Robert Englund go,
That was my key, actually. I had Return of the Living Dead for her, because that's what she looks like. It's teeth, blue eyes, and burnt off face.
And that scream and that run that cracks me up. I mean, that's just one of those. Like I said, I love everything about this movie, even the horrible stuff. It appeals to me. Return of the Living Dead. But I was going to say, one of the reasons that you may not remember whether you've seen this movie is because it had different titles.
Well, I have that it started out being titled Quest.
At one point, that was one of them, and that was the name of the ship.
And then they ended up releasing it as Mind Warp. Is that it?
One of the ones it was called Mind Warp and Infinity of Terror, or it was a really long, cumbersome title that sucked terribly. And then one time it was Planet of Horrors. And Roger said, no, that's not big enough. Make it Galaxy of Terror. Yeah. So this and surprisingly, some of the video versions of this were released, or maybe the cable versions were released with different titles. So, but the one that finally stuck was Galaxy of Terror. So
that may be why. I just don't remember it, because I saw it under something else, and probably a severely cut version too.
And there were those too, because obviously there's even though nudity was done a lot, the whole fact that she is raped is kind of sensitive, even though it's a giant maggot, which is just strange. The story about that, right?
Yeah, but our listeners might not. As far as
I mean, basically I think he was showing his foreign investors a cut of the movie, and there was no sex scenes. There was supposed to be a sex scene between, what is her name again? The blonde?
Dameia.
Okay.
Is her character name.
Yeah, and Cabren, Edward Albert's character, were supposed to have a sex scene that never happened. I guess Edward Albert didn't know about it or didn't want to do it. And so Corman went back and shot those rape scenes with the giant maggot, which is also a funny story because it was too big and didn't look realistic. So like overnight they had to go in and like take 4 feet of width out of that worm and constrict the things that bound it, round it together to make it the right size to appear as if it is violating this woman. And basically the scene is just a naked woman writhing around in what looks like a bunch of Quuhod jelly with occasionally the belly of like a worm kind of grinding her, I guess you would say.
Yeah, that's a good description. Yeah.
So there is a lot, and they also told her that she would not, that he would do it tastefully, and there wouldn't be a lot shown. But there's a lot shown. You pretty much see her naked all the way.
Yep. But I think the big concern when it got an X rating was the fact that they had her have an orgasm from it and then die, and that was what ended up being cut out of the X version.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and also saw I in the trivia facts about it, I saw that the KY they used was freezing cold. That was her big complaint.
I saw that too.
Taaffe O'Connell said that was one of the complaints. The other complaint was that it almost crushed her at one point because it actually fell through the floor. Ooh. And a crewman yelled roll, and she rolled over and it fell right where she was. And Cameron lost it supposedly and screamed and yelled, and they had to rebuild part of the floor because it wasn't, worthy. But that's also because aluminum, to Roger Corman, aluminum was too expensive. So they made the structure of the maggot out of steel. So it weighed almost a ton, and they're putting it on top of this girl. It was similar to what he did with Aliens because it took I think 8 or 9 guys to operate all the little tentacles Queen. And so same for the Queen, which was supported by a crane even because it was so huge.
It's funny that you said that about Cameron, because in the thing I was watching, the documentary, some of them said things that definitely keyed you into his behavior or what he is known for as far as being very controlling. And one of the guys actually almost came to blows with him.
Yeah.
And he was like just joking and trying to back off, but Cameron was like not having it.
Yeah. No.
So he was a hothead for sure.
Yep. Still is from what we know and what we hear about. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, I heard that, and that was both the director and I think somebody else, Cameron, I'm sure, or somebody else refused to film it, and Corman did film that scene himself. And then he also, after he saw the footage, brought a body double in to do even a little bit more graphic stuff,
some heavier caterpillar stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure the when they come and you see the full body nude and everything, that is not Taaffe O'Connell. That is the body double.
Okay. So, well,
her contract was only topless.
Yeah,
that was the deal.
I encourage those of you watching us on YouTube to go and look for pictures, because I don't have, or just watch the movie, for God's sakes. I don't have pictures of the worm in question because they're all dark and none of them look good. So that's why I'm not posting any.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the monsters. I don't have hardly any monster pictures. I've got maybe one. I've got this one right here, and that's it.
Yeah, and that was the weird that we don't know what. There were 3 specific monsters in this, and none of them seemed related, and that was really weird.
And the first one you don't even see; it just basically pulls a guy's scalp off.
Yeah, you see one quick Harryhausen shot of it, and it looks kind of like a cricket sort of thing.
Yeah,
and then you see the maggot grow in Harryhausen style into the big maggot, which looks more like a caterpillar, really.
Right.
And then you have that thing that you have, which is it's like a variation of the gray aliens that you always see. It's actually
like
the one
version. Mm-hmm.
And the one that hit me, and you could probably compare it, that image that you have of the evil entity, adult monster, let's say, looks almost exactly like the alien from Independence Day.
You know what? You're right. I knew it looked familiar, but I couldn't remember what movie.
Yeah. It's that
I was
angular jaw and the pointed green eyes, except in Independence Day, they're silver, but we don't see the top of its head. In Independence Day, it has that great big fin on the top of its head, like a dinosaur kind of thing. This one does, we never see the head of it because it's always shot in like 4-second shots or something, you know. But yeah, and then we also have the maggot attacks or the tentacle attacks, which kill the poetry quoting commander guy. You know.
Forgot about the commander. Yeah, that's a picture of him behind getting. It looks like he's getting his eyeballs sucked out by a tentacle.
Yeah, by tentacles. Yes, lots of suckage in this movie. There's lots of suckage.
And that scene, actually, if we were doing keys, that scene. Well, you know what? I'll just do it when we get there. I'll do it later.
All right,
because was having trouble coming up with keys for this that were not science fiction, and this one happens to be not science fiction. We can move on to casting, though, if you would like to talk about casting.
Like I said to begin with, I was really impressed with the number of name talent in this. I mean, not that any of them went on to huge stuff. I mean, Ray Walston had come from My Favorite Martian. Erin Moran had come from Happy Days. But you had Robert Englund, who was really the breakout star. I mean, a year from now, 2 years from now, he's going to be Freddy Krueger.
Well, actually, 2 years from then, he was the alien, the friendly alien from that miniseries V. Yeah. And then he got Freddy Krueger 3 years later.
Right.
So yeah, he had two major ones right there in a row. V was popular, and then Nightmare on Elm Street.
But as soon as she walked in, I recognized Grace Zabriskie from
Twin Peaks.
I love her in Twin Peaks. She's the mom, awesome. And she's awesome in it. And she's great in this, except it's the same thing. It's like PTSD times 2000. You know, I've got in my notes, don't ever say Hesperus to this woman, because she immediately goes, yeah. He gets into that whole, they're all dead now, except for me. You know, it's just.
She's so psychotic looking at times. And in the documentary I was watching, Robert Englund tells the best stories. And he said, oh, yeah, Grace Zabriskie was a cougar, man. We all had the thoughts for her.
Nice. Well, I mean, I will say that her plot point, I don't understand. She establishes her character really strong in that first scene about, you know, we're taking off now. 30 seconds. Let's go. Strap in. Let's go. We're going. And then, I got us here. Oh, I have some back dark story. And then she has a nice scene with Ray Walston, the Koss character. But I don't understand her death sequence at all. I don't know what she's shooting at, what she's seeing, why he's talking to her, why she runs out with a big shotgun thing to the airlock.
She runs everywhere. She's running through corridors all the time.
And then she's fried by something in the airlock, and we don't know what or ever see it. It makes no freaking sense. But anyway.
No, it's a haunted house movie. The door opens and there she is with no face.
But cast-wise, I thought she was really good. I thought Edward Albert. Is he related to Eddie Albert?
He's Eddie Albert's son, yes.
Okay. All right, then.
Son of our Green Acres star, Eddie Albert. He didn't go on to do a lot that we know of, but I do remember him in things. And again, another Robert Englund story was that he said he got the best advice he ever got in the movie business from Edward Albert. And he said that when you hit the valleys between films, go to Europe. And at the time of this documentary being filmed, which was probably 20 years ago, Robert Englund had done 12 movies in Europe. And so he always had money, because when he wasn't getting cast over here, he'd go over there and get cast and stuff.
Okay.
And he said Edward Albert is the one that gave him that advice. So I thought that was interesting.
That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I will mention that. So I liked Sham. I liked, of course, Robert Englund is Robert Englund. He like I said, he has a couple of really good scenes in this.
Mhm.
Sid Haig, I immediately recognize, because how can you not when you see him?
Spider Baby.
Uh,
He's in Spider Baby, man.
well, he's Rob Zombie's guy. That's
He's
who
Rob Zombie's guy, Captain
you know.
Spaulding. Yes.
But the one I wanted to mention when you got the casting was Jack Blessing, who played
the one that got his face pulled off, or the one that got his scalp pulled off. Yeah.
Yeah, he gets scalped. Blah, blah. That dude has like 200 credits.
Yeah, he's a huge 80s television actor.
He was everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
Remington Steele. I mean, everything. The dude was in everything.
Yeah, he's a very recognizable face.
Yeah. I could not believe it. I was going, oh my God, this guy has done so much.
And honestly, he was not that good in this. He basically ran around screaming most of the time, kind of like that Mark Patton in Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Yeah, he either screams or vomits. That's all he does in this whole movie, so yeah.
Funny.
But that was my take on the cast. Yeah.
On the casting. Well, do you know who the big get was that they wanted that they did not get?
No.
Mark Hamill.
No.
Yeah, they were after Mark Hamill to do this movie, especially when they saw the costumes from Battlestar Galactica, because the beige costumes look a lot like his costume in Empire Strikes Back.
Mm-hmm.
And I read where one of the producers, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, said, if you can get Mark Hamill to be in this movie in that costume, it will be a hit. Because they will associate it with Empire Strikes Back, I guess, even though it's an alien ripoff.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, they didn't get Mark Hamill. They got Edward Albert, son of Green Acres, Eddie Albert. And do you know who was also considered for this role?
No.
Keith Carradine. He would have been good.
Yeah. I mean, he could have done it. This guy was kind of he reminded me of a
Tom Selleck.
Tom Selleck guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Keith Carradine, out of all the Carradines, would have probably been the best suited, I think, for this role, because some of the others I don't think would have been as good. Erin Moran, Joni herself from Happy Days. I mean, I'm assuming they got her cheap and she was a familiar face, and that's why they wanted to use her.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, she's not a horrible actress, but she was a kid actress. And back then, a lot of kid actors just never made the change, to adult acting.
Right.
Kurt Russell and Jodie Foster were exceptions, and Erin Moran was not really. She ended up, I read, it's really kind of sad. I read that her house got foreclosed on and she ended up moving back to Indiana before she
really
died.
I did not know that.
Oh yeah, she was there for God, I guess she moved back in the 80s or 90s and then died recently, like 2018, I think.
Oh, all right.
Ray Walston, Uncle Martin, as you said, everyone's favorite Martian.
Yep.
Played Core. Ray, was always working. The reason, the way I put him in the timeline of this is that in the 90s, he went on to be in The Stand, the Stephen King miniseries.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that was a good 10 to 12 years later than this. So, I mean, Ray Walston was still a working actor. And he started back in like the 50s. So he was a get, I think. And he's good. I mean, who doesn't like Ray Walston? Here's a funny story about him that Sid Haig said. He said that Ray Walston would walk up to him and go, "Sid, don't fuck with me." And I could see Ray Walston doing that. Hey, Sid, don't fuck with me.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I remember him. What was it? It was something that he did. Oh, it was Picket Fences. He was the judge in Picket Fences, and I loved that character. Because it was that kind of judge you wish all judges were, that would just go, "No, you're wrong. Get out."
Judge Judy. The male version of Judge Judy.
It was that kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, so I thought, I was amazed that he got the cast he got for this, because they all have some kind of cred somewhere, sort of thing. I did not see Taaffe O'Connell after this anywhere. But I can understand, seeing her naked, you go, oh, I know why she was cast.
I mean, you would think she would have gone on to be the sci-fi version of Barbara Crampton.
Yep. You would think.
Because she did a full nude scene. I mean, Barbara Crampton did a full nude scene in Reanimator, and so did Linnea Quigley in Return of the Living Dead, and both of them went on to become famous B-movie actors in horror films.
Yeah.
Why didn't this woman make it in sci-fi? I guess because, like you said, they don't make as many sci-fi movies.
Well, and she did a bunch. She was, did a lot of television, just like what's his name? She did Knight Rider and Three's Company and all of that. So, but I found out in researching a little bit that
Mr. Furley's here again.
She actually, even though she was born in Rhode Island, she was raised in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Oh, that's why you know her. Well, that's a funny name, Taaffe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a John Waters character. Oh, Taaffe, go get those eggs.
Yeah. Or that's the second string stripper at the joint. When you're through with Crystal, you go to Taaffe.
She's very pretty, and she was interviewed a lot in this documentary as well, because she talked about the rape scene and stuff.
Well, I mean, face it, I'm sure after Corman saw the draft, she was the draw. She was, that's the publicity you need to get out there, because that's what makes it unique. The same way we talked about Alien, the big thing was the chest burster. No one had seen anything like that before. Right. And that's what gave it the draw.
And a woman being in charge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other people that I don't know much about, but that definitely play prominent in this movie are Bernard Behrens. If I'm saying that right, he played Commander Ilyar. Like you said, he was a poetry reading and a little odd, and let Grace Zabriskie kind of walk all over him as far as
basically. Yeah.
And then he got his he had the scene where he's repelling and gets his eyes sucked out from the tentacle.
Correct.
Which was kind of a creepy scene. Another person that does not stick out to me, I had to actually look his character up because I had forgotten about him, is Zalman King, played Baelon, who was the one that had the rivalry with Cabren.
Yep.
This is my command. No, this is my command. Whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's a recognizable face too from probably television, I'm guessing.
Well, he was the producer of Red Shoe Diaries.
The producer
on HBO. Yeah, that was his Zalman King's Red Shoe Diaries. That was
Showtime,
thing.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was Showtime.
It was like Skinny or Cinemax. It was like a skin flick kind of thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was the big producer of that. That was his brainchild, was Red Shoe Diaries.
Oh, well, he made some money off that, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because it was basically softcore porn on late at night, wasn't it?
Yeah, he produced a lot of softcore porn.
Yeah. Ironically enough, I think David Duchovny was in one.
No, David Duchovny was the narrator for that whole series.
Oh, he was? Okay.
Yeah.
Which is funny because Mulder always gets associated with porn.
Yeah. And David Duchovny has a sex addiction. So, there you go.
And he was in that show Californication, where there was a lot of sex too. I forget, man, what is with David Duchovny?
Yeah.
This shit follows him around.
It must be an alien thing, sort of thing.
We've already said probably enough about Robert Englund. He's Freddy Krueger, probably always going to be known for being Freddy Krueger, and along with James Cameron became mega famous in 1984, because Cameron became famous in 84 with Terminator.
Yep.
And then he, of course, became famous for Nightmare on Elm Street. You mentioned Taaffe O'Connell, which brings us to Sid Haig. Sid Haig has been around forever. He died recently too, I believe.
Yes. Yep. He did.
I mean, long before Rob Zombie, Sid Haig was doing movies. He is, I want to say isn't he in Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer?
Probably.
I think he's in the remake of Night of the Living Dead. I think he plays Mr. Cooper in one of them anyway. The color version.
Yeah. Yep. I think you're right.
Actually, you know what? That's not Sid Haig in the Tom Savini one, but I think he's in like one of those Night of the Living Dead 3D ripoffs. So anyway, I'm pretty sure he's in one. And
Yeah,
then
I'm pretty
I
sure he is
remember
too.
him back from a couple seasons ago. I talked about watching a movie that you found extremely funny called Spider Baby,
Spider Baby. Yeah.
which is a black and white exploitation movie from the 60s. And he's in it, as well as those Captain Spaulding character in the Rob Zombie movies. He plays Quuhod. Is that how you say it?
Quuhod.
Quuhod.
Yeah.
His contribution was he read the script and told Roger Corman. Roger Corman called him and said, "Hey, will you do this part?" And he said, "Yeah, but I have a condition." And he said that Roger said, "I'll hang up on you if you ask for more money." And he said, "No, I don't want more money, but I want the character to be mute." And he said, "Why do you want the character to be mute?" He said, "Because none of these lines are believable."
Yeah. Yeah. One of the documentaries I watched said that his line was, "Have you read this script?"
Right. And so Roger said, "Okay, yeah, we can work around that." So he played the character mute. However, the director forced him to say his one line about "I live and die by the crystals" because it's key to his death.
Yeah.
Um,
And what
Anyway.
was with the magic ninja crystals? I mean, he didn't ever really use them other than the door, and it made no sense. And we didn't understand the philosophy, and none of that works.
He threw one into a dead body at one time, but it was just hanging there. So he took it back out.
Yeah. Before you leave cast, I did have.
Sure. I've got a little bit more.
Oh, go ahead.
Go.
Yeah,
go ahead. You're fine.
Mine was Brian Wade. Brian Wade was one of the creatures in it. He has gone on to do tons and tons of makeup. He's a makeup artist. He actually did makeup for Obi-Wan, the series. So he's still working and done a bunch.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned Grace Zabriskie played Captain Trantor. She's very funny in this movie. I still like her. They aged her. They gave her like gray hair, even though she wasn't that old when it was filmed. It was long before Twin Peaks. And there was one other person considered to play this role that I guess couldn't do it or ended up not being as good as Grace. And that is a woman named Ruth Roman. Do you remember her?
Do not. Nope.
She was in Strangers on a Train.
Oh,
she played one of the character's sisters. As soon as I looked her up, I was like, "Oh yeah, I know that face."
Okay.
And then you also mentioned Jack Blessing, who played Kaz, and all I have in parentheses is 80s television actor.
Yeah, everywhere,
everything.
He's in everything. It's crazy.
I have a couple other things as far as awards. This movie is not on the 1001 movies
I
you must
am
see before you
shocked, I tell you.
However, I have mentioned the Avoriaz Fantastic Film Festival before as far as awards. This is a film festival that was held in the French resort of Avoriaz between 1973 and 1993. It was there for 20 years, and it was the precursor to what is now the current Gérard de Mer International Fantastic Film Festival. So they basically changed the name, but they nominated Bruce D. Clark for the grand prize.
What?
For this movie at the Fantastic Film Festival. Yes.
They were hard up at the Fantastic Film Festival that year.
1982, man. Well, Corman had ties over in Europe, so maybe he made that happen. I don't know.
Okay.
And then I forgot to mention, I have a little category for FX that I don't usually use, but I had pasted something in there. And that is that, like you said, this movie was originally rated X. So cuts were made for an R-rated version.
Yes.
And those cuts included scenes of evisceration and a protracted shot of a scalped corpse with part of his skull missing, several frames from the infamous worm rape scene showing the giant worm's thrusting movements and the victim's face in ecstasy.
Yep,
and
I remember that one.
Climax for both of them. Sounds of bone breaking from a scene in which another female character gets crushed by living wires.
That's Erin Moran.
And from what I understand, that's right, it is Erin Moran. And then the original X-rated version of this movie is confirmed to be lost or destroyed, which someone confirmed on the documentary I wrote. He said those scenes are gone. They
Right.
can't be found. So, because I guess Corman didn't save anything. I don't know. So,
Well, I had a funny trivia thing I found I wanted to
Sure.
share before we go to Keys, which was
Yeah.
Bruce D. Cooper. One of his earlier films out of the, like you said, 5 he did was called Naked Angels. And it was basically a Hell's Angels movie. But the tagline from the poster was Mad Dogs from Hell, hunting down their prey with a 1/4 ton of hot steel between their legs.
Okay.
And I died when I saw it because basically it's got a nude girl on the cover and then a bunch of bikers. And that's the poster. And I was going, okay, this is the guy that made this movie.
Another Corman movie, I'm sure. He's interviewed extensively in this thing too. As a matter of fact, everyone was still alive when this documentary I watched aired. But when I looked up this film, I started looking up the actors, and the only people alive from this movie are like Robert Englund and one other. Everyone else is dead now.
Yes.
I was kind of shocked.
Well, it's from the alien planet. They didn't wear helmets. So it's from
the Corman set.
Yeah. From the McDonald's.
Where there were toxic chemicals.
Toxic McDonald's cartons.
Well, I mean, Robert Englund said that it was filmed on some lot.
It's filmed at the lumber yard. That's where they filmed it. Yeah.
Well, it was a former lumber yard, but it had been turned into a studio, and it was way outside of Hollywood, I think. And he said that he might have been partaking of a joint once, way back in the back where no one would see him. And he said he saw beds and posters outside. He said, like, people were living there. Which is just very strange to me.
Which doesn't surprise us. No,
not at all. And then before we do, like you said, move on to, why is my phone going crazy? Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I don't usually have the ringer on. I was expecting an important call and I'm turning it off. So I was going to do one thing about trivia. We talked about James Cameron being the art director and going on to becoming probably the most famous thing out of this movie. But do you know what got him noticed in this movie that elevated him to the assistant director or whatever of those murder scenes?
Yeah, he figured out a way to make the maggots jump.
Right. On the severed arm of Sid Haig, there are maggots. I don't know why. Why did all of a sudden there be maggots when?
Because we need a maggot to rape the girl.
Yeah. I mean, basically what happens is really gruesome. Is Sid throws the crystals, they stick, they end up shattering, but then they reassemble themselves in whatever weird shit that's going on in his mind, and one of them shoots into his arm. And that's the gruesome part to me, is when the glass is going up inside his arm, and he chops his arm off to keep it from getting, I guess, any further into his body. And the arm is lying there, and all of a sudden it's covered with maggots, but the maggots wouldn't move.
Right.
So I'm sure this is probably against PETA regulations now, but James Cameron electrified that arm so that it would shock those maggots and make them move.
Yeah. Found a way to make them wriggle.
Make them wriggle.
Yep.
And that is the genius behind Mr. Cameron that got him promoted to
the
director.
Two of the investors for Piranha 2 were there that day on set with Roger looking at stuff, and they saw it. Yes, I saw that.
And they hired him on the spot.
You reminded me of my last point, which is the whole conceit of this movie is supposedly this ancient pyramid is making them face their fears. As a matter of fact, I think he says something like it's an adolescent test of an ancient race or something like that, which I guess they think makes it a highbrow sci-fi concept. But none of them, the one girl says, Taaffe's character says, I hate worms. Yeah. So later on, she's raped by a worm. But like the psi character, who, by the way, never uses her psi for literally anything other than I don't feel anything, says she doesn't like.
That's Joni, right?
Yeah. She
Joni
doesn't
Cunningham.
like claustrophobia, yet she's killed by cables, which makes no sense. Is Sid Haig's character afraid of his own crystals because they're the ones that kill him? You never know. What I'm saying is it doesn't make it. I don't see them being attacked by their own fears because we don't really see it.
He lives and dies by the crystals.
By the crystals, literally
It's
dies
prophetic.
by the crystal. Oh,
Yes.
that was it. Foreshadow.
As far as the cable death with Erin Moran,
Uh-huh.
she had agreed to do a nude scene and then backtracked and negotiated a more violent death in exchange. I did read that.
Okay.
So I don't know how you do that. I never knew you could negotiate a more violent murder.
Well, with Roger
Corman,
Corman, you negotiate anything.
yeah,
baby.
you know what? You're probably right there.
Negotiate anything,
just
I'm
negotiate
sure.
yourself right into your head exploding.
Whatever you need, we'll make it happen.
Yeah. So yeah, Joni didn't want to be nude.
I
Keys.
guess.
Yeah, keys.
I have my first one is Erin Moran, actually, which is Star Trek Next Generation, because you had an empath on that, and her character was Deanna Troi. And the whole first 2 seasons, all she ever did was say, I feel this, or I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything. And I was going, okay, so it's just you got Deanna Troi here. So.
You do. And that was another reason why I did not like that show.
Well.
And Wesley Crusher, who just
it got better.
Won the Jeopardy tournament. The Celebrity Jeopardy. I don't know if you saw that, but
I did not. But
won.
Well, good for him.
I have Alien, of course.
What?
Because,
never heard of it.
I mean, it's funny. We talked about Cameron going on to direct Piranha. And
yes.
I recently did a Shudder promo of the original movie Piranha. And Piranha was one of a million Jaws ripoffs. And this movie is one of a million Alien ripoffs.
Yep.
And I'm saying a million. There's probably about 10 or 20, but there's a lot.
There's a lot.
Yeah. So yeah, Alien. And then it went on, of course, to inspire Aliens because of its director, James Cameron. And like I said, some of the crew members.
Yeah.
That worked on in the art department. So another one I have that you probably don't have is the Master. When you see him in the beginning and the end, it's basically just an actor whose face is blurred out with like a red glow.
Yeah, sun head, sun face.
I would call that a Dormammu key.
Oh, Dormammu from Doctor Strange?
Doctor Strange.
Okay.
It's more Dormammu from the comic book than it is the movie. But in the comic book, his head was basically like flame. It had no distinguishing features. And he was probably Doctor Strange's biggest enemy, like Superman is with Lex Luthor. Dormammu was with Doctor Strange. And that's what it reminded me of a lot. So...
Well, you said Alien. There's so many Alien keys, we don't go into it. But I mean, everything from those long distance shots showing the huge pyramid, and you see the little flashlights here. People. Yeah, that kind of stuff. I mean, there's so much that's Alien inspired. But I also have Predator, this whole thing of being picked off one by one by an alien, and the fact that we don't understand what the alien wants or what it is until the very end, kind of thing. I have Event Horizon. Because like we said, supposedly the story of this was that they're facing their fears.
Right. That was the original concept.
That was the concept for Event Horizon too. Another not very good, well done movie. I have another James Cameron one. This is kind of a loose key, but reminding me of it, which is The Abyss, for the whole Marine who is way too gung-ho, loose cannon, disobeying everybody, doing his own thing all the time, and ends up killing himself, because of it, kind of thing, because that was the character in The Abyss. I have so go to my sci-fi ones. I have Forbidden Planet, because especially when they get into the pyramid and they show those great big huge walkways that they're walking on with no rails and everything's like 30 stories tall and all that. That's very reminiscent visually of Forbidden Planet. And when they go into the Krell workshop.
Well, and it's also like a psychological monster as well.
Yep. A monster from the id.
The id, yeah.
Yeah. And Zardoz, because I didn't understand
that in a long time.
I didn't understand Zardoz, and I don't understand this. So
okay,
it's the same kind of
we need to
thing.
do Zardoz because I don't know that I've ever seen it, or if I have, it was on HBO late at night, the same night I watched this.
Yes, we should definitely do that.
Zardoz.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Poltergeist and Return of the Living Dead and Independence Day. For various reasons, but I would add to that Invaders from Mars because the tentacle type thing that kills what's his face in the beginning kind of reminded me of that. And then that picture behind me where it fills the screen reminds me of the original Invaders from Mars, where the Martian's head fills the screen.
Yeah, he has the little crab claw things.
Yes,
in the tube. Yeah.
I mentioned what's his face, the commander, rappelling down a big hole into the planet, and there's holes on the sides where these creatures are coming out, their tentacles, and one ends up latching onto his face. That scene reminds me of The Descent, which is a horror movie, not a science fiction movie, but it is very like, underground horror, monsters underground kind of thing.
Yep.
And then I would also say The Thing, because when they arrive and start seeing bodies, it reminds me of when they go to the Norwegian camp and start seeing that things are amiss. So
those are good. Mm-hmm. I have Evil Dead, because you have this severed hand that decides to attack its own person that it's severed from.
True.
Kind of thing, like Bruce's hand. I have Friday the 13th.
Oh my God.
And that whole slasher wave of the 80s, because it wasn't just Halloween that inspired it. This is one of those where I could literally see Roger and Bruce and even Cameron, if he was there, but sitting around the office going, okay, how many different ways can we kill people?
Right.
Let's just think of that. And then let's just string a freaking movie around that, kind of thing.
That's what Friday the 13th in space.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Then, of course, we've got a few, there were numerous, like you said, a million, but not a million, but probably a dozen at least ripoffs. And two of the ones that came to mind while I was watching this were Forbidden World, which was another Corman movie, and it was done in 82. And they reused the sets and the costumes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like definitely a key from this. And also another one that came to mind was, do you remember one called Breeders? I think it was one, but it was basically Mars Needs Women kind of story, but it was very similar to this. It was these aliens that are looking for women to breed an alien race. And there's a lot of alien, like weird rape in it kind of stuff. And it was definitely inspired by maggot rape. I guarantee it. I can just...
I don't remember that. I do know that there was a wholesome attempt at sci-fi with Corman. Didn't he do Battle Beyond the Stars?
He did that before this. That was before this movie.
But that was like his shot at trying to rip off Star Wars, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
And didn't it have like John Boy in it?
Oh,
Richard Thomas.
Richard Thomas is in it.
So is it's kind of like, they reuse shit from that. And
so is Robert Vaughn. I think the guns in this are from Battle Beyond the Stars.
Well,
and if you watch the trailer, the first 3 seconds of the trailer are all scenes from Battle Beyond the Stars in the trailer for this movie, for Galaxy of Terror. I was going, that character is not even in the freaking movie, dude.
I don't know that I watched the trailer, but I will definitely put a link to it.
You've got to watch it. They show like an alien, one of the guys that has like a weird skull mask face, Phantom of the Opera-y thing. And he's not even in this movie, but he's in the trailer because Corman just threw it together, I'm sure. I have another one, Krull. I got the Krull reference because of the weird the weird walking through strange passages that then close behind you or teleport you somewhere kind of weird inside the cavern from Krull. And also they call it a glaive, I think, in Krull, but it was the throwing stars. But his
like
was
a ninja thing.
His was a like a 4-bladed thing, and they were curved, and Quuhod's was 3 and they were single. But it reminded me of that.
I could see that.
And then my last one was old school, Theseus and the Minotaur and the Labyrinth. That's what this story is. It's, the hero trying to go through, figure out the labyrinth, except he's a single hero in Theseus, whereas this is a bunch of us so that we can all be killed off one by one until we fight the big bad at the end.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Greek mythology. Never saw it.
Did you think it was weird that they brought everybody back at the very end to fight him? Like everybody came back zombies and had a big fight with him and he shot them all. That was just weird.
It's zombies. So I liked it.
So you liked it. Yeah. I know. Your favorite, yeah.
I have a couple others. Well, first, a couple that we had already mentioned. One was that the spaceship hallways were made from McDonald's cartons. So yes, McDonald's is a key.
Yeah.
And Captain Trent, I didn't know this. I lifted this. Captain Trantor's name is in reference to the name of a planet in Isaac Asimov's Foundation series.
Foundation. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a planet from Foundation. Yeah.
And then we already mentioned Battlestar Galactica, which the suits were definitely from.
Oh, God, yeah.
And then lastly, one that I'm sure you didn't get is Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones?
Yeah. They have the same abbreviation, GOT. So,
of course, Galaxy of Thrones or Game of Terror. Either one works for me.
So whenever I was reading notes and it said GOT, I was like, are they talking about Game of Thrones? Surely not.
Surely not.
But to sum things up, I wish I could just play this for you. I can't because it's on a DVD. But Robert Englund had a very funny story to share about something that happened to him. I guess it was in the late 80s, probably, or so. He was a big Arthur Penn fan.
Okay.
Or maybe he had done an Arthur Penn movie. I can't remember. And he went to a reception for a film of Arthur Penn's that he said was very underrated called The Four Friends or something. Have you heard of that?
I have not. No.
I haven't either. And he said it's very underrated. Anyway, he said he was in New York, I think, or LA, and he was in this really elaborate sculpture garden at like a reception that was really frou-frou. And he was having drinks and he saw some guy approaching him. And he said the guy had a shock of white hair and he had a cravat and he was clearly like a film critic. And he was like, oh my God, I think he recognizes me. He's like, I can't believe it. Maybe he saw that movie I did with Henry Fonda. And he said the guy got closer and he went, Robert Englund, loved you in that movie where the bitch got fucked by the giant maggot. And then he just went, Galaxy of Terror. There you go.
Thanks so much. Oh my God. That's awesome.
Right.
That would be terrible. Yeah. But there you go.
Well, we would like to thank you for joining us today. I'm going to be able to quit laughing on our voyage, not to just a planet of horrors, but to a galaxy.
Galaxy of terror. Yes.
And we would like to thank you for being here. If you're watching us on YouTube, please subscribe and ring that bell. We can always use your help there. And if you're listening to us on the airwaves, like us, thumbs up us, give us a review. If this is not enough for you, we have some smaller shows that air pretty much weekly on YouTube, Coming to Get You, which is usually a coming attractions kind of program, as well as some of my Shudder films or recap like I do in the show here, as well as top fives. And if that is not enough, because, you know, it's never enough,
Never.
you could always jump over to Patreon and support us and get really in-depth dives into shows like The X-Files or Star Trek. And until next time, David, which I believe we're going to be in the horror world again. Even
We are.
This is not horror enough. I want to, you know, let me point this out. Have you noticed that probably my two favorite science fiction movies we've covered so far this season were this and The Green Slime?
Yeah. I wonder why. I can't imagine why.
I'm telling you. Well, next week we're going straight to hell, and that's the only clue you're going to get.
That's it.
And I will see you then.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.